All right, good day, Pax et Bonum. So we have a new topic today. Our topic for today is about Java syntax. So we will be covering quite a lot. It will start with declaration of variables, how Java is actually written. We will also cover data types as well as manipulation of variables, the order of precedence of operations. We will also cover how to get an input and how to display an output. So our learning competencies today are to write the correct syntax using keywords in declaring statements, and we will identify a variable and its data types. We will also manipulate values of variables. We will use input and output statements in a program, and we will evaluate and reflect on any work done before taking further actions. So, to get things started, I want you to think about this. In your opinion, how do you think video games are created? So maybe the quickest answer to that is through programming, and that's right. But what I want you to think about is what is actually the process, or how should it look like? To show you an example, let's watch this YouTube video about a guy creating a basic RPG game, but this one is done using JavaScript. So let's watch this.
Here's the idea. I'm going to spend a couple days and try to make a little 3D RPG game, like Breath of the Wild or Dragon Age, and I'll be implementing it 100% from scratch. Okay, so I'm allowed to steal my own code if I already wrote it. So I'm totally just going to copy paste the setup code from a previous tutorial, and that gives us a basic plane and skybox. Nothing special. Now, a lot of game engines, Unity included, use an entity component style architecture, which really lends itself well to reuse. I like working with this style, but of course, since we're working in JavaScript, we have nothing. So let's make one. How hard can it be, right? I'm just going to crap out a quick one. It'll be a pure component-based system as opposed to the newer entity component systems, but in reality, there's not much API surface to these things. An entity is a glorified array of components with some accessors and management functions, and that's it. And once we have one, the first thing we want to do is make a player controller and third-person camera. Luckily again, I can just steal from myself, again. We already made these in a previous tutorial. These are getting a quick copy-paste right into their own components. So I just need to dump in the player controller code and wrap it all up into this player basic controller component. And that gives us a fully working walking character. Same thing with the camera. We covered that previously in third-person cameras.
Yeah, sorry. I think that would be enough just to show you how it is really done. So to create games, we use a programming language. There are many different programming languages that can be used to create video games. With that example, that's JavaScript. And for us, we are going to use Java. But before we can create actual video games, we have to learn first the basics on how to develop computer programs. So we really have to start from the bottom. So to start everything, you have to learn what a Java class is. So a Java class is the most basic component of Java that will be the very file itself, and that will be the very program itself. It is written just like the one presented on the screen. So you have here the Java class. So the keyword provided is public, and then class, and then the name of the program. But you don't have to worry about this because when we use our compilers, by the way, a compiler is the one who interprets the code we create and turns it into a machine readable language. So it acts like an interpreter of sorts. If we will compare it to a natural language, so the compiler interprets the message of the programmer to the computer. So, by the way, the public class must only be one. There can never two. There can never have two classes on one file. So look at this. We have the public class. It starts from here on line 10 and it ends on line 14. Inside that, we have a bit of code here. We have the public static void main. And for this introductory program, we will be placing all of our codes, much like this, inside void main. Once you get into higher education, maybe that's the time you will learn what these different keywords, public, static, and void mean. But for now, what's important is most of our codes will be placed inside the opening and closing braces of public static void main. So what are the things that we can place inside the void main? First is, of course, variables. The heart and soul of programming actually revolves around the manipulation of different values. And these values are placed inside variables. Maybe you already have a bit of an idea what a variable is because of your last year's JavaScript. But just to give you a refresher, a variable is a container. It's a container of different kinds of values. Now, what I want you to ask yourselves, if we are going to talk about values, what is the difference between a number and a letter? Seriously, think about it. What is the prime difference between a number and a letter? Because we are so used to it, we use it every day. Sometimes we forget what do they actually mean. And some of you might get it. When you talk about letters, they are descriptors of things and such. So they are basically characters. But when we talk about numbers, numbers can be operated upon. What do I mean? We can use different arithmetic operators like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, even modulus, to operate on those numbers and come up with an answer or an output. When we say 1 plus 1, we know that it will always be 2. But with letters or with alphanumeric characters, we cannot do that. If we add A plus A, there is no actual meaning to it because they are letters. They are not meant to be operated upon. So much like, think about your cell phone numbers. Two cell phone numbers cannot be added together because that does not make sense. So what I'm trying to point out here is different values have classifications. We cannot just make use of a value, put it into a variable, and we have no idea what we just placed inside a variable. Because remember, during the time when you are in JavaScript, when you create a variable and when you place a value inside a variable, the variable in JavaScript doesn't actually care what type of value you placed inside. In JavaScript, we have to explicitly know the type of data a variable has. So there are actually 4 kinds of basic data types. When I say basic, These are the most common and most used, but there are actually plenty of different data types. It's just that since we are in the introductory course, we are only going to tackle these four. Actually, more so dun sa three, sa first three. So let's get into it. The first one is an integer. When we say an integer, look at the examples, 1, 3, 6, 25. The common among them, they are whole numbers. And aside from that, the integers must never have a decimal point, because having a value with a decimal point is actually a different type of data. The data type for that is actually double, or in some programming languages, that is float or floating number. But Java actually has a float data type, but we normally use double. Anyway, for double, it has a decimal point, like these examples, 3.7, 87.5, 72.455. So all of them have decimal points. Now, what is a string? A string is a set of alphanumeric characters, and what we have established before, these characters or these values can never be operated upon. Like the word hello, the word yes, the alphanumeric characters 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you will notice, all of them, they have quotation marks. So when you see, in programming, when you see these quotation marks, it means that the value or the values data type is string. Now, I want to make a special, um, what do you call this? I want to point out that this 1, 2, 3, 4 that you see is actually not an integer, it is a string. Why? Because, like I've said, if there are quotation marks to it, those are definitely strings. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you add 1, it will never become 1, 2, 3, 5. Since they are strings, they cannot use arithmetic operations. Although for strings, we can actually use the addition operator, but it actually produces a different kind of output. And then lastly, the last data type is Boolean. So for Boolean, we only have two values for it. We have true and we have false. So how should we use them in Java? So we will create a variable. Inside our void main, we will write some commands. So to do that, let me open this one, our Java Online Compiler. Maybe you can also do this. I want you to emulate what I will do. So this is the URL. You may also get the link on our Schoology. By this time, I think I already have published the online compiler in the main page of our Schoology. So this is our compiler. For now, let's use this, but eventually I will ask you to download NetBeans, and that NetBeans will be the one, or we will use that application, that NetBeans, in succeeding computer programs. All right, so to create variables, if we are going to create integer variables, we use the keyword int, int, small letters, followed by a variable name. Now this variable name It is up to the programmer what to put as a name. The thing is, when you create names, it must be relevant to the task that it will do. So let's say, for example, we are going to ask a user for a number. So what kinds of names can we create for the placeholder of a number? Maybe we can name it as num or num1 or even n1 or even number. We end our statement. The whole command is called a statement. We can end it by placing a semicolon. If we do not end that, the computer will read it as an error. Just like in English, whenever we create sentences, we must always terminate our sentences with a period or an exclamation point or a question mark. So in programming, to terminate a statement, we will put semicolon. Now, by writing this, we have actually created a variable named number. This is what we call a declaration. But sometimes it is also important that when we declare, we also initialize our value or our variable. So let's say we will put here the equal sign and then 0. So what happened here is we declared a variable named number, and initially it has a value of 0. So that's how it goes. Now, after you declare a variable, anytime you can now change the value of it. You just have to call on its name, and then we use the assignment operator equals. Remember that the assignment operator is the equal sign, and then we just put a different kind of integer value. And you read this as number gets 333. If we are going to create a different variable, let's say a string, we will type with a capital S, string, followed by a name like first name or F name, followed by equal sign, and then in this example, I placed the initial, or I used the initial value as blank. So the variable F name has, I cannot say I cannot say that it has no value, because having no value is different from having a blank value. In this case, F name has a blank value. Now again, anytime we can change its value, just remember, if it's a string, it has to have quotation marks, like Sir RJ, and then I will terminate it. On the next line, we can again change its name to Francis. So that's how you create variables. For double, we will use double. If I'm not mistaken, it should be capital D, and it may get 4.6. So the thing here is, when we declare variables, it must have the required keywords. Like for integer, you have to use int. For string, you have to use string with a capital S. For double, capital D, double. Now, as you may have noticed, we are actually always using the equal sign. I call this the left gets right concept. This equal sign again, we call this as the assignment operator. Why is it called the assignment operator? Because using the equal sign, um, it enables a variable to be assigned a value. So the left gets right concept dictates what kind of value or what value a variable will have. So the left side actually always gets the value of the right side. Or in short, the variable on the left will get the value on the right of our command or on our statement. So let's have an example. Let's say there is a declaration of a variable integer. The name is n1. It gets the value 5. So at this point in time, um, when the computer reads the code, at this point in time, n1 has a value of 5. The next step, once the computer reads the second line, it, it will change the value of n1 into 2. And then when the computer reads the third line, n1 is changed to 40. So the final value of n1 is actually 40. I need to establish first that when the computer or the compiler reads your instructions or your commands, it reads it from a top to bottom approach. So it will read the first line first, then second, third, fourth. So that's how computers are reading our codes. Now, the final value of a variable is actually the last value a variable is carrying. In this example, the last value n1 is carrying is actually 40. So it will disregard 2, it will disregard 5. The value of the variable at the end of its life is 40. Now we can also use different kinds of arithmetic operations in conjunction with different values. So let's say we have the integer n1, it gets the value 5 plus 1. So the value of n1 is actually 6. Or we can have another variable n2, and then it will get n1 plus 10. Now, how do we do this? Since it gets a variable plus a literal value, we have to know first what is the value of n1. Now, to know the value of n1, we need to look at the codes above. What is the last value of n1? Since there is only one line above and it uses n1, so the value of n1 here is 6. So it will become 6 plus 10. So the value of n2 now is 16. And then let's have another one, n3. n3 is n2 plus n1. So what is the value of n2? We have established here that n2 is 16. What is the last value of n1? The last value of n1 is still, here it's still 6. So 16 plus 6, so that is 22. All right? Now sometimes there will be more than one operator that will appear on a computation. So when that happens, we need to use the order of precedence of operators. Now, I will be showing you an equation. I want you to answer this. So pause the video for a moment. I want you to determine what the answer to this equation is. Okay, so probably you already have an answer. Some of you may say that the answer is 1. Some of you may say that the answer is 16. There are actually two answers to this equation. And I cannot say which is more correct, but in my opinion, just my opinion, both answers are actually correct, 1 or 16. Why? Let me show you the computation for the two of them. If we use PEMDAS, like what we have learned during our elementary days, if we use PEMDAS, our answer will be 1. If we use this framework, BODMAS, um, by the way, BODMAS is primarily used in Europe and other parts of the West. BODMAS means bracketing and then order. Order is the what do you call this? Exponents, and then division, multiplication, addition, and then subtraction. If we use BODMAS, the answer will be 16. And again, going back, I cannot say which is more correct. So in my opinion, both are actually correct. It's just a matter of point of view. If if you are going to use this PEMDAS, well, 1 is the right is the correct answer. If you are using BODMAS, 16 is the correct answer. If you go to a country using BODMAS, well, the correct answer there would be 16. If you go, or if you are staying here in the Philippines, the answer will definitely become 1. It all depends on your what do you call that in research, your uh, theoretical framework. So what I'm trying to say here is we have, all of us, we have different opinions on the matter. That's the value we can get from it. We have different opinions on every matter. My opinion will not be more correct than your opinion, primarily because even though we have different opinions, we might be looking at the different scenarios, environment problems, using different eyeglasses, using different point of views, using different frameworks. So anyway, going back, we are going off topic. Going back, in computer programming, the order of precedence is actually closer to BODMAS. Any computation will be evaluated based on this order. So grouping first, followed by division, multiplication, and modulus, followed by addition and subtraction. The thing is, for each category, the operation is done whichever is first from the left. So if an operation is seen, let's say modulus first from the left, so the computer will operate on the modulus first before other operations on the right. Let me give you an example. So we have this. Let's copy that. I will answer that for you. Okay. Since in the order of precedence, it states here that it would be grouping first, and whichever is first from the left. So we will look at this equation, or the computer, the compiler will look at the equation and determine who has a grouping first from the left. So it will be this one. So here. So the computer will evaluate that immediately. So that would be 1. And let's do it step by step. So 40 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 2 divided by 1 plus 1. Now, after evaluating the first grouping from the left, it will evaluate other groupings. So it will evaluate now this line. I mean, the second grouping, 1 plus 1 is 2. So next is, it will now find division, multiplication, modulus. All of them are on the same level, but whichever comes first from the left. So the computer scanning it will find this one, 1 times 1. So 1 times 1, it will become 2. Ay, sorry. It will become 1. And the next, it will again find another multiplication here. So 1 times 2, that would be 2. And then it will see a division here. So on the next set of operate, or next set of computation, 2 divided by 2 will be 1. So what we are left here are mostly additions. So we will do it left to right again, since the first one from the left is this. So that would be 41 plus 1. And then at the end, the value will be 42. So the answer to this equation using the order of precedence in programming is 42. By the way, you might ask, sir, how come there are different answers yung about the question kanina, no? This one. The cell phone has a different answer, the computer has a different answer, my calculator has a different answer. Again, depending on what kind of order of precedence the phone or the device is using. But for us, it must be common because we are going to use the order of precedence of Java. Now, to display something on our screens, we will use this code, system.out.print. Let's go back to the compiler. Now, we have here 1, 2, wait, this is incorrect. There should be a name. There, that's the name, number with decimal. Anyway, if we are going to display something on the screen, let's say we will display the value of the variable. We will use system.out.print followed by what do you call that, parentheses, and then we will end it with a semicolon. Now inside the parentheses, this is where we will place what we want to be displayed. So let's say I want to display the variable number, so I will write inside the variable name. Now to run this, you just click run or F9. You will see here below the value of the variable. You can actually also write a string on our output. To write a string, remember we have to use quotation marks because that's how you identify strings. Like, let's say, hello. So when you print hello, what will happen here on our output is it will display the string hello immediately followed by the value of the variable number. Now, if you want to put a space, you have to manually edit this one, add space. If you want the 333 to be on the next line, you can add you can add here /n so that it will be on the next line. We can also do this. Let me just remove this. We can also do it this way. We can use the addition operator to add two strings together, or a string and a variable value. We will put here plus, and then we will write the variable name. So what this does is it doesn't actually add in the sense that they are numbers wherein when you add it will give you the sum. What the plus operator here, the addition operator, does when it operates with strings is it appends, meaning it places uh, two different strings together. So let me show you the output. So you have the string hello, and then it appends the value 333. All right. So what else? Um, to get an input from the user, let's say we will ask the user for an F name. Let's just delete this. Yeah. Now let's change this print out. Let's say we will ask the user for a first name. So using system.out.print, we will prompt the user to input a name. So we can place here, please write your name. So when we run this, the user will be seeing something like this. So it will give them the idea that they need to type their names in. So now, to get the name, what we actually need is we will be importing a set, or yeah, a set of functionalities, a set of package from the Java library. So we will need to put here import java dot util dot scanner, capital S. So importing this line, or this java.util.scanner, it will let the program use commands that gets user input. So after placing this, the important thing to remember is we need to create a variable name like this one. The variable here will be the placeholder of the input of the user. So after placing the prompt, we will use the first name or the F name, and we will place a value inside. And the value will be something, yeah, I forgot. Before we go to that, we must create a scanner object. The code will be this one. Scanner space scanner name, and it will get new scanner system.in. I know it's quite long, but eventually you will be able to memorize it. So scanner space the scanner name, much like the variable name, it depends on the user what to name. In my case, I always use the name scan, but you can actually name it like S or X or any name will be fine. It's just that for me, I'm very used to using the name scan, and then it will get scanner, no, new scanner, and then inside is system.in. So this scanner object, this scan, will be used to actually get the user input. This one provides the codes, it gets the codes from the library. This one is the actual command or the object that we will use for the command to get the input, and it will be placed inside this variable name. So we will write here the variable name, and it will get the scanner object followed by dot next. So this piece of code, the scanner object plus dot next, it will get the user input. So let me just run. Now there's the prompt. Please write your name. The cursor is blinking. So we can now write our name here. Once we press enter, what do you think will happen? When we press enter, the program will stop. Sir, how come there's no output? If you look at our codes, we have no statements that will display anything. Now, what if we want to display what the input or what the user inputted? That's the time we will use system.out.print. Like hello followed by the variable for the user or the value, the input. So once we type and press enter, it's around this part. Okay, please write your name, it's here. Once we press enter, this will trigger, and then it will display hello followed by what is inputted. Okay, let me just tweak the code. Let's use next line. Using next, it will only get the input before a space. But next line, it will get all of the inputs regardless if it has space or none. There we go. So that's how you get a user input. Now, if you have time, I want you to practice declaring a variable, displaying something on the screen, and even getting input, displaying an input. By the way, if you use if you use an integer for your input, you cannot use next line. Let me just give an example. Let me delete everything. Let's play with this one, int number. So let's say our problem is we will get the square of a number. So we will be inputting a number and then we will square it. So for our prompt, please input a number. But then again, I deleted the scanner object. Let me declare it again. All right. Now we will now put the variable number, and then we will use the scanner object scan dot. The one I gave earlier, the dot next and the dot next line, are only used to get inputs which are strings. If we are going to get an input using an integer, it must be next int. Let's just double check if there will be errors or none. No errors. So that's good. Now we will square the number. How? We will manipulate the value of the variable. So here we will place the variable number because that's where we will save the value, and it will get. How do you square a number? You just multiply it by itself, right? So it will be number times number, and then let's display that. All right. If you are going to use a double instead of next int, it will be next double. So again, I want you to practice with those things. And if you have questions, you may directly message me. Thank you.